welcome to the Post-Human Podcast.
Welcome to Post-Human Podcast, folks. Today's guest, and we did a little talk before the show, and unfortunately, yet again, I made a fool of myself. But today's guest is J. Robert Parker, CEO of Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research. Now, this
Howdy.
is going to be a very fun show because hypnotherapy is a very strange topic because some people will...
It is.
some people almost see it as like a psychic medium sort of thing in some aspects. I know people that do. I'm a huge fan of like anything that is not so much hypnotherapy, but I'm a huge fan of neurolinguistic programming, and I'm sure that you'd
Oh, yeah, NLP. Yeah, absolutely.
NLP.
Yeah.
But before we get into any of that, let's just talk about you and what you do. So, your company, what do you specifically do?
Ooh, well, the short answer is hypnotherapy. But hypnotherapy and research. But as to what defines hypnotherapy, that in itself is a tricky thing. Um, I guess there's a couple of things I should touch on before that. Hypnosis in general is actually a totally natural process. Um, it's you are naturally in hypnosis at least twice a day.
Yep.
I always ask people this: have you ever woken up from a dead sleep and had that moment of inspiration where everything kind of
Oh,
clicked
yeah.
together? Everything, yeah, that's hypnosis. Uh, 30 minutes after you wake up and 30 minutes before you go to sleep, your body or your mind rather is naturally in the trance state.
I tend to do
So,
a little bit of writing during those times because
yes,
it's
that's
very,
actually a
very,
very
very
good
good
time to
for
do that.
creativity. But sorry, carry on.
Yes. I always recommend everyone keep a pad and paper by their bed because
Oh,
of
yeah.
those moments, because of those bits of clarity. And what hypnotherapy does is I take associations that you've had previously because all life is associations. That's who we are. That's our sense of self. And that's not always healthy. Um, so for the example I give a lot of times is like, let's say with weight loss, um, people will struggle a lot with that. They consciously
Very,
want to
very
lose
common.
weight. They want to be healthy. Yeah. But we have these associations. Let's say when this person coming to me to try to lose weight, say when they were 5, they had some type of traumatic experience, but their parents made it better with food. Part of the comforting and part of the making better
Yep.
was, oh, here, have a cookie, it'll be okay. And so food is then associated with comfort.
Comfort, yeah.
And yeah, because in the end, and this is for trauma, this is for weight loss, this is for almost everything we do. It all boils down to
A reward system?
where we were at the time. Yeah, kind of the reward system also, but where we were at the time. Let's say if you were traumatized by a bad car wreck when you were 6 years old, even if you're 40 now, your memory of that, your associations, and the emotional development with which you dealt with it is still that of a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old, rather, even when you're 40, until such time as that's gone back and readdressed, which is what we do in hypnosis. So we allow you, in that instance, to go back to that moment with your adult mind, with your logical mind, so that you're no longer processing this event as a scared child, but rather as a logical adult. You
Yep.
change those associations.
Makes sense.
So I just change associations to give people healthier habits and mindsets in life. Sometimes it does involve NLP. That was part of my education. Um, I myself use NLP a lot. I find it to be a really good passive practice. And for those of you that don't know what neurolinguistic programming is, the best example I can give, the most common example in popular society,
Darren Brown?
is if you've ever heard that. Well, no, I was thinking if you were ever the, scared to talk in front of people, the whole notion of, oh, just picture everyone in their underwear.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's yeah, that's active mindset things.
Yep.
That's taking control of your mind, which is what NLP is all about, taking control of that thought process that normally just kind of runs rampant.
I took a little sip there. It's well timed.
Okay. Well done.
It's I mean, I learned about neurolinguistic programming through a I used to do security, and during the course of we had to learn about people because we had to learn about their behavior, which is it's very tricky, but we learnt it from a very strange mindset because we're having to deal with people in just one
Yeah.
singular manner, which was mostly aggressive and you
Yes.
know non-civilized. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Uh, but during that process, when I was learning it, the tutor that I had, Sean Mantak, very intelligent guy, also taught us a little side thing that wasn't even relevant to the course, which was a little bit of neurolinguistic programming. And I learned about that years and years ago, and it's so overlooked. But
Yes.
it's so subtle, and it is in everyday life. It's everywhere, and
Mhm.
there's films that
Yes.
sort of
And it's the same with hypnosis.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of why again I wanted to get you on this show because it's a very it comes hand in hand. It's
Mhm.
almost the exact
Absolutely.
same thing, but it's so strange that again. Normally, I'll have a bunch of notes, and one of them was neurolinguistic programming. So I'm glad that you sort of half brought it up before, like in the way
Yeah.
in which you did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's NLP, as you said, is a part of our day-to-day life because it's nothing more than a lot of our unconscious behaviors made conscious. And again, with hypnosis, I'm dealing all with unconscious behaviors. And there's an interesting thing that the longer I do this and the more I do this, I start to question the concept of free will
Oh, okay.
because so much of what we do is all just programming by association. And we're just operating off of this, albeit complicated script. Now, the flip side to that is kind of what I do because I've been a part of discussion with some of my peers. And one of the things that some people brought up is this concept that what's called metaprogramming is the next stage of human mental evolution. And what that means is it's being able to consciously change your behaviors and your associations. And that kind of does start to introduce free will. So now we're working with this really wild concept that up until the point that we have actually learned hypnosis and hypnotic programming, we haven't had free will. It's all just working off a script until such time as now we have this tool that it allows us to actively change this script to our own needs and to our own wants. And that is kind of the ultimate expression of free will. So that was kind of part of the conversation that blew my mind when we had it is that hypnosis is the ultimate expression of free will, which is interesting because a lot of people have this association that hypnosis is mind control, when really it's kind of the exact opposite. It's
Yeah, that
taking
makes sense.
control of your mind. Yeah. And outside of some very brutal examples, you cannot be hypnotized to do something against your will. And it's it's interesting. I think I've had this conversation
can,
before with somebody, but
can
we
I
had this discussion. Go ahead.
can I make a there's when I learned about neurolinguistic programming, there was a person that was mentioned. I don't know if you know him. I think his name is Kendrick Cleveland. And
Really familiar.
he was basically he was sort of not an architect of neurolinguistic programming, but he was a huge advocate of it. But he was known to do these fucked up things,
Mhm.
and he was like, you can almost look at it as, the light and dark side of things, in which
Well,
what you do is sort of the light
yeah.
side of hypnotherapy, in which you engage people and you bring out traumatic experiences and make them feel better about themselves, and the end product is a
Mhm.
positive. But
Well, there is such a thing as dark psychology. That is
yeah, that's what
kind of what you're referring.
that's what this guy was apparently known for, which was the dark side of it. So I don't know if you had any sort of reference to that when you mentioned what you just said.
Um, yeah. Um,
There is
there's a lot.
it's a strange,
There's a
it's very
big part of the
strange.
dark psychology movement,
It's very
and
strange. Sorry.
when you find like these courses, like, oh, seduce more women through psychology, or get what you want through psychology, that's dark psychology. That's
Yeah.
that's taking the principles of NLP and manipulating them. Because like any tool, a hammer can be a weapon when misapplied.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Anything can.
And anything can, absolutely.
Especially if you're John
And
Wick.
it's he's special. John Wick.
Sorry,
I can't
carry
believe they actually turned Keanu Reeves into a killing machine for that.
on. Excuse me. Yeah, no, that was he's good in it, but sorry, carry on.
He's good. Um, but you talk about dark psychology and some of the stranger experiments. Are you familiar with the Milgram behavioral experiments?
I am, yeah, yeah.
And that's I talk about association, and that is kind of association exemplified to its highest degree. Because for anyone listening that doesn't know, the long and short of it is the Milgram behavioral experiments were an experiment done in the 60s by Stanley Milgram.
Yep.
And he took a pool of random people off the street, sat them down in front of this machine, and basically had them quizmaster somebody while shocking them to death, just to see if they could be told to shock someone to death. They weren't actually doing it, it was just an actor in another room, but they truly thought they were murdering this man. I think it was like 88% of people went all the way. And the only thing in the room was this box and this man. And nobody said who this man was. He wasn't introduced, but he had a white lab coat on and he was holding a clipboard. And that was the only symbols of authority that were given. It's just our associations, what we've learned through life, associated that white lab coat, the general
Yep.
appearance and demeanor of this man, and the fact that he was holding a clipboard with authority.
Looks
And
professional.
that's
what we're saying.
looks professional. And that's a prime example of association. You don't view that man as an authority figure because you've made that logical conclusion. You view that man as an authority figure because
Yeah,
your
yeah.
subconscious associations say anyone with a lab coat and clipboard is a scientist or a doctor or knows what they're doing.
Well, there's
And it was enough to.
sorry, go on, Karen.
No, you're fine.
Well, there's a
Go on.
slightly good reference to that, in which, I mean, I have only recently. I mean, I watch just pure documentaries. I don't really watch much
Mhm.
light-hearted things. But I recently watched a documentary about the art heist in Boston. Obviously,
Mhm.
one of the greatest heists of all time. And obviously, what it was
Yeah.
that two police officers allegedly, came in, and then they was pretended to be police officers. But obviously, the person on the desk perceived them to be a police officer, let them in, and
Mhm.
obviously, well, it was one of the greatest art heists of all time, and
Yeah.
it still goes on
Because it's
till the day.
inconceivable
It's just,
to question that
yeah, yeah.
authority.
That was the
It's
reference.
yeah, no, it's absolutely the same thing. It's your brain is not programmed to question that because you couldn't. It would drive you mad. You would go through questioning the authenticity of
Especially
everything.
in the 90s. There's
Yes.
there's a 20-year difference between now and what happened then, and
Oh, absolutely.
I think it was a year before I was born. I think it was literally
Yeah.
1990. It was around
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think it was.
And again,
But it's
geez, I mean, that's a long time. That's 30 years. It's a very
and
long
it's
time.
these a lot of hypnosis is based around that. Like you'll see a lot of like these demonstrations of like people being able to hand off blank slips of paper as money notes and things like that and have people take them. And a lot of that has to do with, again, the association and the fact that we see what we want to see and we
Yeah.
don't see what we don't want to see. Like there was an instance, I believe it was in Japan, I want to say 30 years ago or so, where a plane landed in the middle of a highway and like 20 people hit the thing because they and everyone interviewed almost that said it said they never saw it. Like it was just not there because your brain does not think to process airliner in the highway.
Yeah, yeah.
So these people's minds literally didn't and they hit it.
They seem to
And
do that in America, don't
it's
they? Is rather than land, uh, let's say anywhere else, it's to land on a highway. They sort of more aim for a
uh-huh.
highway because of the size of them,
Oh yeah.
which is
Oh yeah, they're huge.
yeah, it's kind of strange in a way. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off point with my weird
I think
tangents.
no, that's fine. Things are on a weird scale here. Like there's just so much land to deal with like because I originally like I've lived in Texas before and the scale of that is just dumb. It takes a whole day to get out of the state driving. It's strange. Uh
I want to
but
go out to Texas. It's obviously I'm hugely more plugged into the states than I am my own country.
uh-huh.
I think it's probably
Mhm.
better for
I
most
understand
people.
that.
It's probably better for most people to do that because if it's easier to look at the chaos
Yes.
on the outside than the inside. Uh, I don't know,
Yes.
maybe.
And it's perspective.
Yeah.
It's perspective. It's expanding your world to more than just
Oh
where
yeah.
you live. And that's very important. But I it's this whole thing of hypnosis that I do. Like when I tell people like this thing will change your life. I'm I'm saying that from personal experience that the process of learning this and the things I had to learn to do this and that I had to look back on myself and see my own person and my own thoughts on it. I can honestly say that I'm a completely different person at the other end of this journey of becoming this because of the
Yeah.
things I've learned about myself and about other people.
Em-
And
just empathy is a huge factor.
man, empathy is a massive one.
If you know
And
empathy,
there's
you're a winner automatically because you
yeah,
can just learning how
exactly.
other people can think and how they feel is a huge play
Hmm.
on humanity.
Yes, that's a massive thing. And one of the things that specifically both the metaphorical and literal school of hypnosis that I come from has a system attached to it for hypnotic suggestibility and behavior. And of all the things that I do, one of the odder things that I do is help people with their interpersonal relationships. I can't work with couples because in the States, you can't do
Yes.
that without special licensing. Um,
Would you want to?
but I will, no, no, but I will work with one and kind of present this system to them. And it's called the ENP system. And it stands for emotional and physical, and it's not quite that. Um, so in terms of suggestibility, which this is a test I have all of my clients take beforehand. In terms of suggestibility, someone that's more physical needs to be spoken to more literally. You can give them direct suggestions. Your eyes are feeling heavy. You want to close them. You are going to do this. You can use very definitive statements.
Yep.
uh,
Okay.
you can you can describe things to them in great detail and they'll process it. Like if you tell them to picture a stairway, you can describe in exacting detail how that stairway looks. On the other end of that spectrum, you have emotionals. Emotionals have a thing with control. They want to be in control of the situation. So the language that you use with them has to be more inferential. You may begin to feel your eyes getting heavy. If you do, you can close them if you so choose. When you say tell them to envision a stairwell instead of describing it to them, you have to be like this. The stairwell can look however you want it to look, and
Okay, makes
smell and be
sense.
lit however you want. Now, and everyone, it's a spectrum. And in between that, there's two other suggestibilities. That's a somnambulist, which is the reason stage hypnosis exists, who it's about 5% of the population. They're the ones that hit 50-50, and they are the most hypnotically suggestible portion of the population.
What's your thoughts on that? That's a
And
very strange thing with like
oh, it's
stage
real.
hypnosis. I know some of it is
Yeah.
real, but I mean, obviously there's cases where people are
Oh, yeah.
paid to. So it's
Yeah,
a
of
very,
course.
it's very, you can be very
And it's a
skeptical of it.
double-edged sword
Yeah, you can be
because it's kind of
skeptical,
given
but
hypnosis a weird rap.
yeah, it gives it. I mean, I'm
But
not gonna lie, it does give it a bad name. Especially, I
yeah.
mean, I'm not gonna slander the person, but I recently went. I mean, I'm a huge fan of comedy, and I went to see a
Mhm.
comedy event, and there's a fake psychic medium, but it was done in a comedic way,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah. Well,
extremely
they're all
funny.
tricks.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even. There was no tricks. It was all just words. There was
Yeah.
no props. There was nothing like that. But it was just mostly audience engaging. Um,
Yeah.
but it was just done in a very comedic manner. But I would assume that down the line it would still give you guys a bad name. You know?
Yes, absolutely. And from the very get-go, that was kind of a problem. Like, and by get-go, I mean like the 1700s,
Yeah, yeah.
because the the forefather of hypnosis is this man named Franz Anton Mesmer. And
Oh, okay. Yep,
Mesmer's
it's
a
ringing a bell now.
yeah, Mesmer's a weird character. And because he was basically derided as a charlatan because he was claiming this weird animal magnetism pseudoscience. But here's the thing, he was getting results. And that's why he was so famous and so popular. He just didn't know what he was doing necessarily because there wasn't a word for it yet. So it's a strange thing to me because, like, is someone a charlatan if they're just misinterpreting their results? If they're still getting results. So it's a weird thing with me. But then there's many events up leading up to now that kind of serve to like hobble hypnosis as a mainstream thing. Started with Mesmer, and then a man named James Braid started to kind of give some legitimacy to it. Then Sigmund Freud came around and decided that hypnotherapy was the dumbest thing that ever existed, and since Freud was in fashion, uh, that flew, and he kind of suppressed hypnotherapy. Oh, and then it started to catch on a little bit more, and then the '80s happened, and the whole satanic panic thing came to be.
Yep.
And that's where hypnotherapy really got its most recent bad reputation because they were using hypnotherapists to interview these allegedly abused children to, through regression,
Yep.
alter their perception of an event to make it them think that they were abused. And this it later came out that this was absolutely a thing that was intentionally done, and it gave hypnotherapy a weird rap.
Well, that was
Well,
one of my
thankfully,
strange segues. I was going to get into it later on in the show, but obviously, it wasn't in terms of obviously the cult satanic side of things in the 80s,
Mhm.
which was very strange, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of trickery going on. Let's say
Hmm. Yeah.
with psychologists, and not only that, with just police forces and
Everything.
just from
Everything.
not even just with that specific category, but widespread.
Oh
Um,
yeah, of course.
but it was one of the categories I was going to get into later was that back in the day, it was I would imagine a strange thing for hypnotherapists because during that time when during the 80s when everyone was against like witchcraft, and there was a lot of occult happenings and serial killers and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Uh, Hypnotherapy was also seen as alongside that.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was like
I've
a
been accused of witchcraft.
it was like a parallel. You
Like,
know.
yeah, like personally, I have been accused of performing witchcraft for
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
this, even though this is a thing that I have stacks of medical research to back up everything I say. But there's still this perception because of I, I don't know what it is, the previous associations,
Yeah, yeah,
the
that's what it
profundity of
is.
change, because it's I have clients that the change I see in them is stunning. To somebody that was ignorant and uninitiated, it looks like I'm doing witchcraft. It has to, because I'm just sitting here telling this person stories, and over the course of a month, they've lost 20 pounds because of these strange stories I've told them. And that, I'm sure to some, looks like witchcraft, where if you gave it 5 minutes and listened to an explanation that I have to give, I've even got a boring little PowerPoint presentation to explain exactly why hypnosis works the way it works.
Well, listen, before
But
the show,
there's
you
always going
gave
to be that perception.
before the show, again, I've been trying to work on my video editing skills and with OBS, and you slandered me into the ground with that. You made me look like a goddamn fool. I've been working so hard this week, and you've got this shit
Whoops.
hard overlay, and I'm like, God damn it! I did go. You know, that's pretty impressive before the show. But it, again, you know, it's crazy. You know, but
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No, you're fine.
What
You're fine.
what
Oh.
but here's back on that weird topic of, you know, that not the 80s, but hypnotherapy, and it's not so much whereabouts, but some of that was, some of my show is conspiracy relatable, but I'm not ever
Mhm.
promoting
Oh,
them
yeah.
because I just like to talk about them, because some
Oh, yeah.
people have a whole mess of opinions.
Oh,
But
you want to talk about conspiracy? I can get into some wacky shit around.
oh well, I'd imagine you could.
um,
That's absolutely fucking sweet. But
um,
the first thing I would like to get on, I could imagine you'd have a lot to talk about, is the MK Ultra program, which essentially
that's
was
actually
a,
exactly specifically what I was about to mention.
yeah. See, this is where I like to get these guests on, and I know exactly the way the segues go, and we're hitting out of the ballpark. Let's talk about that. I'm a huge
Well,
fan.
I saw something. It was actually something I saw on my phone today, and I'm trying to find it because it pertains. Um, Nothing will make you sound crazier in your day to day life than knowing about four things the CIA has done and fully admitted to.
Oh well,
And I always feel weird about talking about MK Ultra and Project Bluebird because it makes you sound like a madman.
well you can to
But
me,
then
because
there's
this is
this
that
stack
show.
of paperwork that the CIA has released, or they didn't release, it got released,
So much as
and
well.
that's that's a good example of the dark side of this hypnotic programming. And when I say outside of a few very brute force things, I can't make you do anything you don't want to do. Those brute force things I was referencing were Project Bluebird directly. And all it did is, for those unfamiliar, Project Bluebird was this strange experiment. I'm unfamiliar with the specific hospital and the specific doctor who was contracted to do this,
Oh, the
but
listeners will
they were
know.
trying.
The people that listen to
Oh
this
yeah,
show are probably going to be very
yeah,
conspiracy
yeah.
relatable.
So
This
you
is
know
a,
about this man.
yeah.
Well,
This,
so
trust me, the people that listen, we don't really have to get into real specifics, because the people that will listen to
okay,
my show
good.
is very, they're going to be conspiracy
But
theorists mostly.
this
Oh no.
this they were basically, I forget what their exact goal was. They were basically trying to boot patriotism into people's minds or something like that. Uh but they ended up just wiping people's brains. Like there's a woman in Canada right now who lives with her family, and believes they're her family because it makes sense, but she has no recollection of it. Uh, and it was done through, as they're known, through drugs, through repetition. Another really interesting thing, you want to talk about a wacky thing, is the Church of Scientology
Oh,
utilizes brainwashing.
yeah.
And if you ever want to see brainwashing be done, there is a YouTube video that I love to reference. I think I've mentioned it several times in podcast interviews I've done by this gentleman named Reckless Ben.
Oh,
And it's a
yeah.
seven-part series.
I know this
Know about Reckless
series.
Ben? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know
Well,
it.
he did a seven-part series where he
Yeah.
infiltrated the Church of Scientology. And there is a section, I believe in the second or third part, where it shows him actually get brainwashed. And it's it's very similar to what I would do, uh,
It's just
but
so
in a brute force way.
suggestible, though, isn't it? That's the problem. Is it's so,
Well,
you know.
the thing is, like, if I do something to make you think differently, I'm I'm going to put you in a very relaxed state, and I am going to gently, sometimes over the course of several sessions, change these associations to have you think healthier.
Yep.
What this person does in this video is they sit this man down for 10 straight hours and just bombard him with
Hammering.
suggestions.
Yeah, they
Like,
literally hammering.
and yeah, and he comes out and the story they're attempting to alter is he did a backflip and I think broke his neck.
That's what
Something stupid like
that's why
that.
I said it was
Yeah.
so suggestible because by 10 hours you can say anything, and it's just
Yeah,
in a court of
exactly.
law
And
it's
you're
almost hearsay in a way.
yes.
It's that much
Well, and
bullshit.
that's why hypnosis is not admissible in the court of law in most places
Yes.
because of that malleability
Yeah,
of
that's a good word.
recollection. Yeah, because yes, I can make you remember this situation that happened, your perception of it at least. I can also alter that perception because that's what I do normally. Normally I take traumatic events and alter perceptions to be more
Yep.
healthy. Well, I can also take normal events in theory and make them different. And it's this process that I'm using isn't even special. I just know how to apply
It's
it. This
technique.
process that I'm using is used in advertising, media, politics, religion, every every organized thing almost that we partake in as a society can be traced down to a hypnotic modality.
They live.
And
You know the film? They do a
oh yeah,
that's the exact sort of portrayal of it.
uh
Sorry.
huh, yes, no, I love old horror movies, so yeah, I know they live pretty well.
I'm a huge
I
huge
think I
fan
was
of
just
John.
talking about that movie.
I'm a huge fan of John Carpenter, but continue what you were saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Um, well, actually, that kind of leads me to something a little more interesting and applicable. We're talking about movies. Movies are a hypnotic modality. You talk about suspension of disbelief and your ability to get into a movie, to lose yourself in that movie. That's
Yeah,
hypnosis. That's you your this ability for you to feel what the characters feel, to feel that character's terror or feel sadness for the situation. You logically know you are watching a drama. You know you are watching something that is not real, but you still feel these emotions
yeah.
because it's your subconscious getting into it.
Here's a
So
sorry.
that's good movies are always hypnotic. Go ahead.
What's your take on this? Excuse me. So I've spoke about this a couple of times, and some people are kind of on the same field as as the way I describe it. But it was I was going for a shitty after breakup moment, and I was trying to get my head away from any kind of romance because I
Mm-hmm.
broke up. It was a rubbish time, so I went into a lot of sci-fi stuff and whatever. But I watched the film The Terminator,
Mm-hmm.
um, and during that film, I realised it was the greatest love story ever told.
Yes. Yes.
It was not about the robots. It was about
Uh-uh.
a guy
It's about Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor. Yeah.
going back in time to save her so that their son can be born.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Wow, I was right the whole fucking time. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
It's very often that happens.
it's very it's interesting, and I love doing things like that because it's the perception of the moment. It's a
That's what
lot
it
of
was.
people look at Terminator and they think, oh, it's an action movie because the later ones were. But when you examine it, it's a love story. It's like saying Die Hard's a Christmas movie. Like, yeah, it is.
It
Think
is.
about it.
It is a
Like,
Christmas movie.
it's not what you consider a Christmas movie, but like, yeah, Die Hard's a Christmas movie.
Same for
And
Gremlins. Gremlins is the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Toys, like there's
Gremlins is tragic as well. Is the weird thing with Gremlins is that like the female character in Gremlins has this horrific story where her father died.
yes, founding him in the chimney.
Down the chimney. Like, and this
that is the most out of place, strange thing in any movie.
It doesn't even. It didn't even need to be in the plot. There was no need for it whatsoever, but it was in there. I mean, it's super hilarious that it's in there. And there's a few moments in that film that are like that. And you're like,
yeah.
And I mean, it's one of my favorite films. I love the Gremlins. I'm a huge.
I love Gremlins.
Just Gremlins.
Yeah.
I'm a bit on the fence about the new one coming out. I don't know how it's going to be, but
I'm not going to get excited for it until it's out.
But it's a weird thing that narrative is written into that story about her dad for no apparent reason dying in a and the weird thing is that as history goes, before that time, children were getting stuck down chimneys. So why would you need to write that in? Because why would an adult go down a big chimney when adults couldn't ever get down there, which was why children were chimney sweeps.
Never explained that speech. Never once explained that speech.
So out of place. It was so out of character, but it's still a great film. But if people,
it's interesting because we talk about like the meaning of movies that aren't quite their actual meaning.
Oh yeah.
And Gremlins 2, I watched this examination that talked about how Gremlins 2 is about resisting growing up, no matter the effort. That
I don't see any of that.
It's Gizmo resisting adult response. He's literally fighting them with toys.
Yeah, you can take that. You can take that from it because that kind of happens. He grows up and fights those super hard gremlins. He's a mogwai, and then he fights the tougher gremlins, which makes sense. But
I like watching weird perspectives on things, like you know The Lion King, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, Scar's the good guy. Think about it.
I have I kind of am on that sort of. It's very tricky to say.
He's only responding to his treatment, and he is only trying to get his people an equal share of what everything else has.
It's just like, the circumstances behind that are what they are. It's a very weird
Mufasa is a totalitarian. You exist under me because I am stronger than you. It's the definition of fascism.
Even if you look, all of these lands, as far as the eye can see, these are yours.
It's yours. Yeah. It's yours, and everything under it is obedient to you. Yeah. So like,
I can get it.
I don't know, man. The perspective is interesting.
It's so strange because Disney have these weird narratives with films, and it's always the good guy and the bad guy, but deep behind it, there's these huge neurolinguistic images and narrative and dialogue, but it's just so interwoven and it's very beautifully crafted, I'd have to say. It's like
old Disney, because I can't comment on what it is now. I was actually talking about this. But like, old Disney was amazing. I still like to go back and watch Snow White every now and again,
Oh
not
yeah.
because the story's good, but the sheer effort it took to make that. It's
Oh
literally a
yeah.
piece of moving art
It's
because
craft.
each piece it's handcrafted. It took I think 14 years to
Yeah.
successfully complete. And like it's I don't even remember anything that goes on in the movie, to be totally honest with you, because like
I
I'm
don't.
too busy looking at the artwork of it.
Do you know the only scenes that I remember is the old when she's a witch and she's like a hag. I remember that bit with the app at the
Oh
start,
yeah.
and then I remember the weird scene in the woods, and there's like these weird flashing bits, and she's scared shitless. Then I remember
Yeah.
the scene with the dwarves coming through singing, her at the house. Then kind of goes a little bit blank there. She then does whatever. The hag turns up, gives her the apple. Then there's a bit of a
Remember
fight,
that part,
and then that's it. I mean, that was the whole
basically.
real. That's all I remember. But I remember the whole story of it, but I couldn't say it scene to scene.
Well,
You know.
it's interesting because in terms of hypnosis, when I said that movies are a hypnotic modality, but
Yeah.
that also means if you are in trance during a movie, you're hyper suggestible. So
Yeah.
any opinion, any any way of thinking is going to be directly placed into your subconscious.
Yeah.
That's the way you change a society.
Sways
Like
against you.
exactly, like post-war America was really big on the whole what we called the nuclear family.
Yep.
And that was the concept of wife, kids, or white husband, wife, 2.5 kids, white picket fence, all that crap. That never existed, but it existed in media. It existed on television and in movies.
What
So that
about
was,
in the suburbs, so to speak?
yeah.
Because there's some suburbs, and you get those weird
Oh,
cul-de-sacs in
I'm from the
America.
suburbs.
But
Yeah.
they look that kind of, if you was to explain it to me, that looks the same way in which you
Yeah.
describe it over the
Yeah.
media. So is it there, or is it
Ah,
just
it
again? It's
exists. Well, which suburbia? Because there's the 50s and
okay,
60s suburbia that exists that's
okay.
different than the new suburbia, because the
Oh
new
yeah,
suburbia is just cloned houses, whereas the old
yeah.
one
No,
was
that
a little
makes sense.
different. And it's this notion of normalizing this idea over media that if your country sees in all of their entertainment that this is the way a family operates. They just assume that's the way a family operates. Another strange example is I forget where this study was done. Do you know why people fall down when they're shot by a gun?
Hmm, that's
Because they see it in movies.
makes that just makes
Previous
sense.
previous to I believe it was World War II, uh, when soldiers were shot, they would not fall down
Huh.
because of the speed of a bullet, but because these soldiers had watched all these movies and they see that oh when you get shot you immediately fall down
Huh.
more that was that happened.
That's
And yeah,
crazy.
there are certain bullets that will put you on your ass,
Oh
but
yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
that's not the common thing.
No, but I mean,
uh
back in the day when it's like not even 22s, some
yeah.
lousy bullet, you know. Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's a very good point. That makes a huge amount of sense.
Or and it's an example of hypnotic programming through media
Hmm.
that they were so indoctrinated to think that oh when you get shot you fall down because that's what they saw in movies all the time. And it's our natural instinct because of the way we watch movies, because of the mindset set that we're in when we watch movies
That
to
was
um, mimic that.
that was World War Two. You say
Yeah, I believe so. I believe because that's
there was
think about it. That's the real introduction of media. The
well
soldiers that
they
fought that war.
You know, our country made a weird propaganda theory that carrots would make you see in the dark, and the Germans
Yeah,
believe
I remember
that.
that.
And
Yeah,
it's again,
yeah,
you talk about suggestibility. How fucking crazy is that? That we was like, hey,
yeah.
carrots make you see in the dark, and
Our
what?
pilots can see in the dark because they eat carrots.
Yeah,
Uh,
it wasn't.
and
We
that
had
was
a
in response to. I remember reading about that relatively recently because the Germans had some strange radar technology
we
that
did
we weren't able to counter.
we had we had a radar
Oh,
system
that's
around
right.
the UK,
That's
and
right.
then
And the
they,
carrot thing was made to excuse it.
yeah, we
That's right. Yeah.
their laser system could only do an X amount of like
Yeah.
frequency along a certain like diameter, I guess, and yeah, we had a whole grid around the whole of the UK, and it was very hard for them to get into it. Which I only learned about this recently. I wasn't a big fan growing up, learning about it in school, but lately I've been super into it because
Well,
I'm a huge history fan.
that's that's the thing. It's so interesting because it's not interesting to learn in school because in school you're learning propaganda.
Yeah,
Like
you want to have fun. You're a
and
child. Jeez,
and
it's
you're a child, but you
why would you
grow
want
up
to?
and you start to read about the reality of history and it's fascinating. And especially once you start to learn about the truth of history because as I said, in school we're indoctrinated with propaganda. It's never exactly the way things went. And I don't
Yeah,
know about there, but especially here, it's a major thing. Like our kids are indoctrinated with these strange beliefs, but you grow up and you read these books. There's a book that I strongly recommend to anyone listening from America or interested in the reality of the history of America, written by a man named Howard Zinn, called A People's History of the United States. And it
love
is
it.
fascinating. And in terms of British history and World War II, this is one of the books that I read that really kind of uh, made me see past what I was taught. There was this three-part book series about Winston Churchill called The Last Lion,
Yeah, I
and
know that.
they're thick old books. And I've read part three. I'm not going to say I've read the whole thing, but I've read the one part three, which is World War II and the end of his life. And it's I learned some things that even I didn't know about the way things went down and who that man was and who everyone was around him. It gave an interesting perspective on that point in history.
You can only just judge it
And
from
I
your perception as well, which is so tricky because I mean, I'm
exactly.
30, and even if you're 60, you've got a small knowledge of it, but it's not. You
Yeah.
don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
It was.
And
It's
you
almost
have to
100
go
years
everywhere
ago.
to get it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you
Yeah.
look at World War I, that was 100 years ago.
That was 100 years ago. That was over 100. Yeah.
Well, it all stemmed from
Yeah.
that. It literally all came
Yeah.
from World War I. People just go, "Ah, World
Yeah.
War
It
Two, the
was
Nazis," but people don't realize about World War I and how it all came into place to begin with.
yes.
It's a weird
Absolutely.
thing that people
And
really forget
how
about.
even that leads into the current situation today.
Oh yeah, it's
Like, and it's because the map as we know it is is drawn post war.
mm,
Like, it's the power balance as it is now, the map as it is now. That's all post war.
they're
You
always
you
correcting
think
it
it's been around
anyway.
forever. Yeah, they're always correcting it,
There always are.
but it's one of the interesting things is 'cause I love different perspectives. I learned Russian as a hobby,
Oh, that's
and
cool. That's super cool.
yeah, я учусь в Russia язык от
We'll have to do a.
11 лет.
We'll have to. You have to. Yeah, we'll have to reach out to my Ukrainian base at some point because there's got to be some
Oh, they're
Russians
probably
there.
gonna tell you my Russian is trash. Um, but I I interact with a lot of Russians. I've got a lot of Russian friends, and America and Russia
Such a
don't get
hard
along.
country. Like,
Yeah, it's a very hard country, and it's got a very hard history. And one of the things I encourage people to do is learn another culture's language, because in learning another culture's language, you get such a strange perspective, because you can never understand a foreign people without speaking their language. Our countries are at an advantage because we speak the same language. And even then, there's a lack of understanding.
Oh yeah,
So,
just
what do you
culturally.
expect? Yeah, what do you expect with this country that doesn't even, you don't even understand a word they say? You don't even understand their humor. And that's key. If you want to understand a people, understand what makes them laugh. And
It's not even that,
how
just
can you,
simple hand gestures. If you're in certain parts
yeah,
of the world and you make a certain hand gesture, and it's a
yeah.
huge no.
Well,
It's
even this, which has
yeah. It's
developed into, this used to be okay,
yep.
and now it's developed into some alleged white supremacist thing I don't know about.
Yeah,
There's
I don't
parts of the
even know
world that
about that.
means you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah. It's so weird.
So,
But there's
and like
another
the
side
fact
of
that,
that as well. That if you, to some celebrities, they do it, and it means that weird Illuminati shit. So
I don't even know about all that. That's
that's the other
the
weird side.
celebrity world is so detached that I don't even know what to think about these people.
You ever
Like,
you
I'm not.
ever had even a semi celebrity? You ever had one of them as your
Oh
client? I
yeah,
know you can't delve too much into it,
yeah.
obviously, because of
And they took,
confidentiality.
it was, I'm trying to think of what I can say without giving
Yeah, I know
anything
it's
away.
very tricky. It's very
Their
tricky. I
issues
know.
were
I know.
very normal. Like, their issues were not what you'd think somebody of wealth and status would be concerned with, that they were getting hypnotherapy for. And I have peers, because I can talk about their clients, fucking fuck them. That they have clients that are billionaires, literal billionaires, that are coming to them because they're unmotivated or they're unhappy. What? Like, you you're not worrying about bills or anything, but you're coming to us because you can't figure out how to be happy. And
Social
there's an
pressures
interesting quote
and shit.
from Jim Carrey, who
Oh, okay.
said that I wish everyone in the world would get everything they've ever wanted and do everything they've ever wanted to do, so they would know that that wasn't the answer. And it's true. Like, what, because I one of the things I ask my clients, and I try to do this out of hypnosis and in hypnosis, it's always a different answer. I ask, what do you need to be happy? And that's a question not a lot of people can answer, because, not honestly at least, because the knee jerk reaction
No,
is going to be money.
yeah,
Like,
that's the
is it though?
difference.
Okay, but when you say money, you're saying that you have obligations right now that you can't cover. So what happens when that's not a worry? Like, is that it? It's just the lack of obligation that'll make you happy? Will just having the money make you happy? Because it won't. Because there's no end of rich people who have committed suicide because they were
Yeah,
profoundly unhappy. And
it's
so
very
it's,
predominant, to be quite honest.
yes,
It's
very.
you
It's
know.
because of the lack of struggle. One of the times I was most content in my life was I went to Burning Man in 2010 for a couple weeks.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
So it was. I worked medical, and
That's
it
even
was
cooler.
it was a struggle. Like, there's dust storms and heat, and it was one of the years that it rained and it was hard, but I was happy because I I knew what I needed to do to wake up the next day, and that's all I needed to do. I just needed to make sure I stayed hydrated, stayed
Mindset, man.
hygienic, and stayed out of the sun. It was mindset, and that really, it people need to reevaluate what makes them happy, and that's one of the things I try to do, because the happiest people on earth are little fucking aboriginal tribes in the middle of nowhere that have never even seen a smartphone,
With
and
nothing.
they're endlessly happy.
Yep.
You see the old among them, and they don't have worry lines. They have smile lines, and that's it, because they've never worried, because they've only celebrated, because they have no obligations. They only have community and their family around them, this giant family that they live with, and they survive, and they're happy, way happier than you and I, with all of these toys and bills and crap. And
But they've also had to. They've also not dealt with all this heavy warfare for the last, I don't know, 300-400 years. Some of
yeah.
these, like the Sentinel Islands, they haven't had to deal with the conquistadors, for example. So
Hmm.
because
Well,
if they'd had to deal with the conquistadors, they wouldn't be around.
exactly,
That
no
would
one's
be
forcibly taken that from
no.
them.
So you can at least go as far back as that. Even if they
Yeah.
didn't quite sail far as round as there, it's still they could have done, but
Well, and that's really kind of where that whole thing really started, was about 300-400 years ago, when we really started branching out. And that's when the whole weird imperialism thing came around. And any I encourage anyone that drinks coffee or tea or eats chocolate to
I
take
love
a
coffee.
long um, I used to, that started giving me the shakes, but take a long hard look at the
It is
history
a
of those
it,
items.
it is a
It's
terrible,
bad.
terrible industry. I'm not gonna lie. It's
And like,
even fair
look at
trade.
Nestle.
Yeah.
Yeah, even fair trade. Like, it's, and I don't know. I have I don't even have political opinions. My opinion is, we've reached a point in society that we are able to sustain everyone. So stop demanding that this top group of people hoard everything, and just let people live.
Oh yeah.
Like,
That's what we should
we're
do.
we're fucking humans. Like, it doesn't matter if you were born in a different place or anything like that. We're the
No.
same damn thing. And a lot of my work with people that's done with like self-esteem issues, they literally think they're less, like, because of this weird perception in society of what is valuable. And it's these are some of the hardest clients to work with, because this concept of what you should have to be happy, what you need to have to be successful, and they're not meeting it.
It's
You
like
have to change this person's core perception.
Hollywood's perception of the perfect body image. Be
Yes.
it
Yes, exactly.
be it male or female, it doesn't matter. Even I'm sure it's going to come up in the trans community
Yeah,
soon. I can highly. I'm probably not going to say in the next 5 years. Maybe it's gonna happen at some point because it's happened for males and females since there was
absolutely.
a camera on them.
Absolutely.
It's
And
almost sorry.
there's
It's
starting to
almost
be some of that. Like, Elliot Page recently came out.
oh yeah,
And
yeah. Huge
I
fan.
do a lot of work with the trans community. That's actually one of my specialties. And one of the things that really gave me a huge amount of interest in that, because it was a long supplemental course that I took. Did you know that there is a part of the brain called the stria imperialis that is in the hippocampus of the brain, that the size of which mandates your masculinity or femininity? So it is possible to be born with the stria imperialis of a woman and to be born male. And that's really one of the reasons I started wanting to work with these people, because when you look at it like that, when you don't look at it as a choice or a psychological thing, when you look at it as a this is a physiological mandate
Yeah, yeah,
of your
yeah.
body, it's a fucking nightmare, because these these people, they their society tells them one thing, their upbringing tells them one thing, their brain tells them one thing, and their body tells them another thing.
It's nature
And
versus nurture, isn't it? It's
yeah,
and there's
so
too
what
many
I do
variables as well.
I the some of the greatest work that I do is integrating these people to let them understand what they're supposed to be. One of the most profound things that was done for me personally in hypnosis is I was shown my future self, like the idealization of what I want to be. And hypnosis can be very vivid and profound. So I see this man. I know what he smells like. I know everything about him because he's me, but it's in the future. And this this image of this man that I saw, I think about that every day, and it drives every decision that I make. And if this same comfort with the reality of who you are, if I can give that to somebody with profound dysmorphia, whose head is telling them you're a woman and your eyes are telling you something different, then what can I do for that person by introducing them to the part of them they know exists and they've just never seen? And
Yeah.
it's some of my favorite work to do because it's profound. And
Have you
anyone that
ever
doesn't go ahead.
have you ever been asked to do? I know it gets into that dark side, but has anyone ever come and asked you to physically hypnotize them to uh, feel more of the opposite sex? Because I know that's a very wild thing to put out there, but I
Well,
could
no, not
almost
necessarily. I've
I
not
could
had
almost
that request.
I could imagine that it would for some people it would. I mean, people get
Well, that's
hypnotized
the
for
idea.
smoking and weight
Yes.
loss, so I could imagine that it would eventually,
Well, that's the idea behind what I'm doing is
yeah,
if your
draw them into
brain
it.
tells you you're a woman, I can introduce you and make to that woman inside of you and make you feel like that.
Yeah,
And it's as to what you sense in hypnosis, what you see, that varies wildly from person to person. I have clients that can see everything I describe vividly. They can smell it, they can taste it. They're there for all intents. Um, Me, I don't get very many visuals. My mind wanders a lot, but I get profound physical feeling. Like if I'm told to envision walking down a staircase, I I feel in my feet like I'm walking down a staircase. Um, and it's the hypnosis is not about the experience. Like if somebody decides they want to work with me after hearing this and you don't get these intense visualizations and things like that. It's not LSD. The ride's not guaranteed.
no,
Uh but what is guaranteed is your subconscious hearing those things and taking those suggestions. Um when I first entered into the college that I went to for hypnotherapy, I'd not had much personal experience with hypnosis. Um, I'd read some old books, I'd seen stuff on TV, but that's about it. Um, I wasn't even sure it was 100% real. That changed pretty quickly, especially once I started seeing the research. But the thing that really changed my mind on it is pretty early on in the program, we were taught how to self hypnotize, which is absolutely a thing everyone can do. It's
oh yeah,
very
yeah.
similar to meditation. But I was like, okay, we're going to try this and we're
I've
going to use
I've
it to,
personally used it myself
oh,
to
yeah.
conquer
And it's
some
wild
demons. Like, but I
because
did it
I,
neurolinguistically speaking.
oh, yeah,
Do you want to just take a quick 5 minute intermission? Is that okay?
yeah, sure.
That's all cool. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah,
It's alright. Unfortunately, again, sometimes these shows get a bit long, and I have to go for a quick piss. But
that's
it
fine.
also gives, again, I want to continue this. So it also gives you a chance to take a brief break. Didn't even know you smoked. Jeez, where did that come from? That's crazy. I didn't see that. That was great. I didn't see that.
Magic, sleight of hand.
Sorry about that.
Hey, bud.
This is the joys sometimes. Again, I tend to drink through most of my shows. Um, I use it as a somewhat social lubricant. Um,
Oh, I understand that totally.
it it also gives a perspective to people that are ruthless alcoholics who make a mess of themselves. Because then I can go, well, I can drink all day and I'll do a podcast. And why are you such a mess? I'm 12 cans deep sometimes. And you fell asleep at the bottom of your stairs. What's going on in
Woof.
your life? I don't know what's going on. You drink more than me as
And
well?
that's
Huh. It's crazy.
and that's the thing. Like, it's it boils down to
I don't know.
why
I
you
don't know
drink.
what it.
If you're
It's
just
so
drinking to
weird.
there's you know a band called Flogging Molly?
I actually do. Love them.
Yeah.
Irish band.
I've got a fucking CD signed by Dave King somewhere. But
Oh
yeah, but
shit!
they do it's a little short
Yeah.
song. The I fell into prison at 2:45, and I found in my cell, class
Oh,
waiting for
it's
me.
oh
Uh,
fuck.
God, but I don't remember. It's
I'm terrible
it's got
for
something.
terrible for. I'm really forgetful at the minute for names, and so
Oh
I'm
yeah,
probably
it's all
not going to
about
remember that.
like you you drink because you're miserable. No, I drink because I want. Like, and it's one of those like why do you do what you do? Like, I
I
mean,
love a lot of Irish music. I'm a huge fan.
yeah,
The Pogues, huge fan of the
Pogues, yeah.
Pogues.
And I've been
Um,
getting into a lot of Russian music,
yeah,
and
I
it's
like
interesting.
a lot of Turbo Polka, like
Yeah,
Ruskaya. You ever heard of them?
yeah, yeah. I uh,
Ruskaya
I
are
used to I used to fucking
amazing.
hate hard bass, but I've started liking it. I don't know how I feel about that. It makes me feel like I've studied Russian too long if I'm actually starting to like hard bass.
They're
But it's
to be honest, Ruskaya are one of my favorite bands. They're amazing. I'm a huge. It's so strange because one of my favorite types of music is like sort of polka, and people
yeah,
fucking hate it. But I've got a weird sort of taste for it because
I can see that.
I like to move and dance, and it's a very very communal sort of
I feel that same way
music.
about like
You
traditional
know?
Irish music because a lot of
Yeah,
people
that's why I like it.
don't
It's all the same.
don't get into that, but it's got that same thing.
Oh
There's a lot
yeah,
of Russian music with that because Russians have a heavy gypsy influence in a lot of
yeah.
their music.
That's what I like. Like it's like gypsy sort of folk
And one
type
of the
stuff.
things I thought was interesting as I started listening to more Russian music is like even in their punk rock, they're very patriotic.
Oh yeah,
Like not about
it's not
Russia as
anti.
a country.
Yeah,
It's not nationalism. It's patriotism, and it's World
yeah.
War II that caused it because they know what they did. They know what was won. They know everything, and they're proud of it. One of the most amazing things, and I love to watch this every year, is have you ever seen a Russian Victory Day celebration? Uh, it's the craziest thing, and it's you see like grimy punk rockers in the
yeah,
street
it's crazy.
holding up pictures of their grandfather who fought in the fucking war, and it's it's these people that in America would be very anti-government, very anti-military, and anti anything having to do with that. But the Russians have this privilege of knowing that that war was good. It was necessary, and they won, and they're
It's like
proud of it. There's no
it's
question with that.
it's like stacking it up against anti-flag. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
ever heard of those? The
Oh yeah.
again, he took about like sort of punk rock, and I was gonna go Green Day, and I was like, they're not kind of very
I mean,
anti-establishment, but you go anti-flag. I'm a huge anti-flag fan, just because their music's fucking amazing.
it's
They're they're
I'm not
fast.
so much a
You
fan
know?
of the music, but Henry Rollins has because he
Yeah,
was in fucking Black Flag back in the day.
he's
Have
a
you heard
weird
him
cat.
speak? Have you heard
Yeah,
him like speak though? He's weird. He's
he's a weird
but
cat.
he lived such an odd life.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's
in
Henry
a
Rollins.
yeah, and in a way, he's lived an incredibly punk rock life. Like, there's this on Comedy Central. It's on YouTube. There's this show called This Is Not Happening
Oh, I
that
know the show.
yeah, he does a segment called like Punk Rock Hyenas or something like that. That's about
Yeah, I
like
know that.
he's induction into the punk rock scene, eating raw meat with this fucking street philosopher and shit. Like that's too good.
It's wild, man. Something I've been meaning to. I don't know if he's been on Comedy Central. I know that. I've been
Yeah.
meaning to bring him up on my show several times. Have you ever heard of Tim Robinson?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's very funny. He was in a show on Comedy Central called The Detroiters. Um, but he's got a show recently. He just does sketches, but he's so fucking funny. And I like the dude because I've got the same first name, Tim. Anyone that's got the same name as first name as me, I'm like, you're a cool guy.
Automatic bond.
For the being a Tim isn't easy. You know, you get called Timmy, and there's a whole mess of bullshit.
Being
You
a
know,
Tim isn't easy.
yeah, being a
All
Tim,
right.
it really isn't. And then you get Timothy, and then you're like, whoa, okay, now we're stepping into medieval shit. We don't need to
Now we're
do this.
formal. I see.
Yeah,
All right.
well, my mum, I don't know. My mum's called me Timothy a few times. It's normally my nan that calls me Timmy, which is, it's very outdated in a way. I don't know
Well,
any Timmers, which is fucked.
I always
It's
have
not fucked. It's probably a good thing.
I have suspicions, and pardon me to anyone in the audience that does this. I'm sure you're a great human and all, but I'm suspicious about a grown man who uses the diminutive version of his name. Like if I meet a 45-year-old man and you're like, "Hi, my name's Billy," like, is it? Is it
No, I
Bobby
know
or
what you mean.
Timmy? Like,
Is it?
come on, my dude. Like,
I love that, man. Do you know that double
yeah.
is extremely funny. You ever thought about doing comedy? That was fucking hilarious. Jesus. That there was like is it? Is it? I don't know. That was so funny.
Is it?
Yeah.
But
That
like
was
the most unfortunate one's Richard. I don't know how that got shortened to Dick.
the dick.
That's
I watched
that's a rough one.
do you know what's a strange one? I'm cool. It's cool that you brought that up. Nicolas Cage had
Oh
a
yeah,
the history of swear words.
I've not seen that yet. Is it any good?
I don't know. I can't really
See,
say it's amazing.
I
Nicolas Cage is
I like
himself,
Nicolas Cage. I
but
like Nicolas Cage though because
I like him.
he's insane. He's actually insane. Like,
He's him.
but
That's why you love him.
he's
His-
I kind of
it-
got a lot of respect for what he's doing right now because he's just taking these weird projects
well,
like Mandy and Color Out of Time, things like that.
oh, the color. That was again the Lovecraft. That was cool.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that film, man. That was amazing. He was really
But
he was a good actor in that. The weird thing is he's extremely
I
dynamic, Nicolas Cage.
yes,
And people
yes,
don't give him
and
credit for his acting, but that history of swearing, I wish they'd have gone into actually real swear words. But the fact that pussy and dick was in there, I'm like, man, that ain't a swear word. Cunt wasn't even in there. Come on,
what the fuck?
that's a
Ah.
when it fuck was in
I
there, dick, shit. But it was
the
like
basics.
yeah, there's so many
They
more.
weren't wanting
And
to go anywhere risky.
but what they did do was then use those basics and just to give a little feel of the
Yeah.
other swear words. So they mixed two swear words that would be more horrendous in real life, which they could have gone into, and then it is what it were.
I read something once that talked about how Nicolas Cage's career was an experiment in only taking both the best and worst scripts that came across his desk and nothing in between,
I have not
which
heard that.
kind of makes
No.
sense when you look at his career. Like,
What was it? What was his first film? Do you know? It was
Uh, I know
huh.
Vampire's Kiss was pretty early, and that's batshit.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's very early. Hmm.
yeah. So I don't know, and it's interesting because
It went
in New
downhill at Ghost
Orleans,
Rider, at least.
there's cemeteries everywhere, and they're unique. They're above ground. They're like these cities.
Oh yeah,
And
like
in
mausoleums.
2011, I went to New Orleans and like partially out of business, partially because I wanted to see the cemeteries. They're
Hmm.
old. And there's this cemetery called Louis One that's in the middle of downtown. It's where Marie Laveau is buried. And uh, Nicolas Cage's tomb is there. And
The fuck?
he's already purchased it. And it's this giant white marble pyramid, like 8 foot tall pyramid that's like
Oh
in the
fuck!
middle of this ancient cemetery. It's the strangest thing. So
Man,
yeah, dude's a little wacky.
people keep up. I mean, there's a bigger conspiracy behind that, but occasionally you get like a meme of Keanu Reeves and there's some dude that looks like him from like the 17th century and some painting,
Oh
and then
yeah, yeah,
like. And people go, oh, he's a vampire, he's immortal. And Nicolas Cage is one of them dudes. Some people have
yeah.
generic
He's popped
faces.
up.
People have generic faces through history.
Yeah,
You can't not
that's
imagine
that's
that's
the
not going to
thing.
happen. There's only so many ways you can picture a fucking face before it becomes
That's the thing.
monstrosity.
If you've never looked at an old historic picture and been like, "Oh shit, that's me," like you
Man,
need to look at more historic pictures.
I've seen one, and I was like, and it was. Hold on, let me light this bad boy. This is a wild story. So well, I'll get into the weird dream I had last night because that was an even weirder tale. But years ago, I'd seen this picture in this like I mean, God, how old was I? I must have been maybe about 22, and I was sort of no, I was maybe about 19. Sorry, and I was semi-homeless. I was in this weird sort of state. Um, I wasn't homeless, but I'd just fuck off away from places and do,
Yeah,
I wasn't homeless, but I didn't like the situation I was in. And I went,
avoided it.
yeah, yeah, and I used to go to libraries a lot because it was just an easy place to go. It was open, and as long as you didn't look like riffraff, you could just go in and read books, which was cool. I could just go and read books, and I'd fuck off. You know, no one's gonna. There's no harm in that. And I remember reading this book, and it was a weird sort of colonial book that was about the Civil War, and I can't even remember why I picked it up. But there was this weird picture of this dude that looked mildly like me, and I was like, "Huh, was that me X amount of years ago?" I almost, and at the time, because I was taking like a hefty amount of drugs, had this weird sort of Buddhist reincarnation mentality about it. And I was like, do we actually just, keep revolving
Well,
around and around? And it's very
funny you
strange.
say that. Um, One of the services that
Mm.
I offer
See
is
that
past life
segue?
regression. Yeah, nice segue. But I do past life regression, and it is one of the most fascinating things that I do. It's part of what the research end of what I do is, and I've I've seen some weird things,
I
and
bet.
I have my own beliefs, and I full disclosure, I believe pretty firmly in reincarnation. That's part of the reason I wanted to research this to see if we can actually recall this. And I've seen fascinating things. And occasionally there's a client that when I do a past life, some things come up, and I'm like, I'd like to do research on this. And it's whenever there is a historically pertinent thing that comes up that can be verified, that is verified. Um, it's there's some exploration to be done. And the question that comes up a lot, because it's a very profound experience for everyone that's ever gone through it that I've worked with, um, asks, is this real or is it all in my head? And my only response I give to that is yes. Um, it's it is
That makes
both.
sense.
Because our perception is our reality. And if you have perceived this thing, it does exist for you. Can we verify that it happened? No, not until we go way further into the field of consciousness research than we have can we actually verify anything.
I have. Sorry, I actually have a genuine question. Now, this I briefly mentioned on a show previous about a memory I had with a film that I didn't know. Well, I knew it existed, and some person reached out, and it was real. So it's now under that basis that I have a genuine question, and it's almost like memory regression in a way because it was almost under the same topic. I seen a brief clip of a film. I knew what it was about, didn't know the name of the film, mentioned it on the show, and then someone
Somebody reached out.
clarified it, and it was 16 years like later, and now I know the name of it. So here's a real question. I have a strange memory. I have a few strange memories, but we'll get into one. And this is somewhat peculiar because I must have been maybe about 5 or 6, judging by how far memory can go back. Because I know I was extremely young, and I can remember it was around the time of certain things that I was getting into, which was mainly wrestling, because I was getting into that around the age of 7. But I know it was just a little bit before then or around the time. And the weird thing was I had this weird sort of dream where, and it's so strange because I didn't know how I'd know about this topic or anything about it, but now I actually really think about it in depth. I wouldn't even realize how I knew about it, but I had this weird sort of recollection that it was I was in the 80s rather than the 90s where I was born, and that in the 80s I had this mild childhood, and then I was in a coma, and it was very strange because, and the only way I can say I was in a coma because I remember having this weird sort of dream where I was in a bed and I was very hazy, and I can only, again, it's a very weird recollection, but the best way to really say that it was, and I've thought about it over the whole duration of my life, so it's not like I'm just pulling it out of memory, like off the spot, sorry, but it's like, it's so strange because it's, in a way, it was very fresh, but it was like I had this weird, very lucid dream, but it kind of ended with me in a hospital, and then I'd woke up in my normal day-to-day life. But I remember my childhood, but it was like there was this weird dream that I can remember as a child.
Well, that's generally what has been
It's
described to
so
me what a
strange.
past life regression is like.
I know that's so strange. It's
And
just, I know it's bizarre. Sorry, and it's very vague, and I'm probably butchering my own
well,
point. But
no,
sorry, Karen.
but no, it's understandable, and I hear things like that a lot. And is this something that just happened one time?
Yeah, it was a one time event. It
Okay.
was literally some of these times I've had in my life. That's one time. One of the other times was like a deja vu moment where I had a dream. I was on a boat, and I've spoke about this on a previous show, and I was going across this estuary type river,
Hmm.
and basically it was about 4 or 5 years prior that I'd had this dream, and then I was sat at one point crossing this ferry, and I was like, oh shit, this is I can see this, and it was a very
Well,
strange moment. But that was the only other time where it's happened, where it's I've dreamt about it, and it has been a reality. I'm
Yeah.
not saying I can predict the future. I'm just saying it was might have been coincidental, but however, I can't quite piece. I can piece what happened there, but I can't piece what happened with this weird childhood memory because
Yeah.
it's so vague, yet it's very clear. But I can't.
Well,
It's almost
that's one
very.
of the things that can be because some people do come to me sometimes with memories like that. Like I have this memory that doesn't seem to fit, and we'll explore that one specifically. And that's normally a very good lead off to a life regression. And it's it's always been a topic that's fascinated me because my earliest childhood memory is uh odd. It's at 2 days, and my mother has this picture of me that I remember being taken. And I not only remember it being taken, I remember how many people were in the room, how they were dressed, what they did. I knew they were doctors. I knew they were going to take my picture, and I was annoyed because of the way they were handling me. At 2 days old, you should not have cognitive fucking thought. You
No.
should not have a recognition that this is a doctor and this is a camera.
But do you ever
Uh,
think that because some of my earliest memories again are from video footage, and then I can go, huh, I've kind of got a weird sense of what happened. Do you ever think it could be that?
um, Not really, because it's a memory I've had since little. Like I
Okay.
always remember having this memory, and it's it's not anything I've explored yet. I haven't done a regression on it. Um, but there's interesting things. Like you said, you've had that dream, and I I'm the only child of two adopted parents, and so up until recently, I didn't know anything about my genetic background, and
Sorry to hear that.
I've always
It's
yeah
pretty bad, man.
I've always had this weird like association or attraction with like parts of the Middle East and like parts of India and things like that.
Okay.
Well, the um the genetic test I got, uh, it gave two things. It gave what I was short term in my recent genetic history,
Yeah.
which was everything predictable: German, British, Russian, everything that
Ang-
you could think.
the Anglo bullshit.
The Anglo bullshit mix. Well,
Yeah.
you go back, I think it's 20 generations. All of my ancestors are either Punjabi or Arabic,
Okay.
and it was one of those things that when I read it, 'cause it was this year, I was like, that's odd because I'm always watching like old Vice documentaries on like Syria and India and things like that. Like back when Vice was good, like 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
ago.
What's
But
your
it's
thoughts on the pyramids? Because
what?
the pyramids. I mean, again, I always get some sort of segue into like Egypt because a lot of the history. I was going to mention it earlier when we was talking, uh, probably about 45 minutes ago now. I was going to mention about when I was growing up in school. The narrative I was taught was from a Christian basis, and obviously later on in life, it turns out that the pyramids might be way older than what they are.
Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts on that?
I
Because it was a weird
One
segue
of the
into that
things
sort of
I find the most
continent.
fascinating about them is I think it's if you draw a straight line through the earth, you come out in Mexico to another series of great pyramids lined up the exact same way.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's that's always been one of the things I found absolutely fascinating. Um, One of the greatest tragedies I think that's happened in history is the burning of the Library of Alexandria
Well, it
because
was meant to have been
we
an accident. Obviously it was
yeah
the docks got set on fire, and apparently it spread, and
yeah
they couldn't.
yeah
But
So
here's the
there's
fun part about that is that some of the scrolls apparently were
yes.
given to what was his name now? Da, 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 Anthony.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, we
Yeah,
do have some remnants of the
but
Alexandria scrolls, but
but
it's the equivalent of having like three websites left over from the internet.
yeah,
Like,
but apparently there was a story that they got passed to. Fucking people are gonna hate me for this because I've probably got the notes halfway across my desk somewhere as well. Because I'm a huge. I always look into history.
mhm.
Anthony, I'll forget about it and carry on with the story. People will correct me about it, and that'll be even easier.
Yep,
But
crowdsource that answer.
apparently the scroll, some maybe 10,000 scrolls were passed on in some sort of deal when the Romans invaded, and then they were maybe stored within the Sphinx, apparently, but it's just all
We
legend
wouldn't
and
know
myth. Yeah,
because
it's
we've
just all
not been
legend and
allowed in the
myth.
Sphinx,
No,
and
well, there's like
that's
a couple of weird entry holes as well, which is
yeah, yeah,
so strange.
and that's one of those things. Like Egypt has always been a very interesting thing to me because it's one of the earliest instances of advanced civilization,
Oh yeah,
and it's they do things there's things from back then that we still don't know how they did. Like, we're still
Mark.
not 100% sure about the mummification process.
I had to Google this. It was Mark Anthony, by the way.
Mark
It's a
Anthony,
very
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
very rare time that I actually go and have to pull my shit up. But Mark Anthony. Apparently, there was a moment where it was him that made this sort of weird moment, and I don't know. But sorry, carry on. Just want to rectify that
But
moment.
it's the there was so much lost in the library, and I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like there was some answers to what's in the pyramid and the things involving it because we know how they made them now. Like we know how they made Stonehenge. Like there's a lot of answers that are coming up finally.
I'm
And
slightly pissed at the minute because Stonehenge is a huge geographical site, and at
yes,
the minute they're trying to build a tunnel underneath it, which is
what?
fucking yeah. In the UK,
Are you
it's been
serious?
yeah. They're trying to actually do some weird shit at the minute, and they're like, it's there's people been protesting, and because
Yeah,
of all
no, no.
but problem is because of all the stuff that's going on in the world, it's been overshadowed in a way,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I'm sure the villagers there have been very on it. But I, in fact, want to raise a point about it because it's one of the only major geographical sites in the UK for ancient civilization.
Yeah,
And well, they're digging under it. Where's all? Who knows what the fuck's under that
that's the
structure
thing.
that
We
was
don't even know
there
what's under that.
years beforehand? There's this whole history, and it's like, let's just fucking build a tunnel. It's like, great, you want to
That
build a
makes
tunnel?
no
Why don't you
sense.
build a huge fuck off bridge? You know,
I know.
why don't you just
Why
why don't
don't
you
you
go
open a
around it?
McDonald's in one of the henges? Like,
Listen, don't give them ideas.
no shit.
There'll be a petrol station with a an overcharged Starbucks and a KFC and a Burger King. There won't even be a McDonald's. That'll be further down the road. They'll fuck you
Do y'all
over. I
have
mean, they
KFCs and Burger Kings over there?
yeah.
That's horrible.
I want to just say it. Someone, one of my previous guests, told me to get something from Burger King, but I want to say that I can't get it on. Yeah, I was going to order a takeaway the other night, and well, I was going to go. Let's get this Burger King. Motherfuckers, they are so expensive. It was
Uh
like
huh.
nine
For
pound a
what you're getting.
burger.
Yeah. Yeah.
£9. I was like,
It's
if I went to McDonald's, that's £2. But Burger King, it was
yeah.
worked out to £9. I was like,
For
I
garbage
cannot pay
food.
that. I can't pay it.
And
It's
I'm
ridiculous.
I'm a firm belief that one of the things that is wrong with society today is fast food. Like, people don't have any, and it wasn't until I moved someplace that it wasn't really available.
Ah, it's the
And
problem when it's is available.
yeah, it's availability and cost and things like that. But since I moved here, because I live out in the country now, and there's I've stopped drinking coffee. I stopped eating fast food. There's all of these weird changes that have naturally kind of happened. I still smoke, but I don't really
Ah,
do
it's
that
not
as
that bad.
much.
Do
Yeah, it's
do
whatever.
you, I mean, the thing with smoking is if you're buying cigarettes, that's actually bad because of the processed shit. But if you, yeah, you see, if you do this,
Yeah,
if you roll your own,
yeah.
hey, it's
Well, there's
tobacco.
another thing
Big
to that.
difference.
There's a weird psychological thing to that, in that I think that one of the things that's important to people in general um, is ritual. And ritual can
Oh yeah,
mean
yeah,
anything. And to me, there's no ritual to taking out a pack of cigarettes and pulling out a cigarette and lighting it. There is a
yeah,
ritual to the rolling of it and things like that. And plus, I smoke less because my cigarettes are thinner and all of that. And
yeah.
when I help someone
Well,
stop smoking, well, mine are. Uh, when I help someone stop smoking,
yeah,
it's one of the first question I ask them is, "Why do you want to quit?" And if the answer is something like, my old lady's bugging me to quit, or work's not letting me smoke, so I guess I should quit, can't help you. Like, you're not,
it's
you
not
don't
the
have that
mentality
subconscious
is no.
desire.
There's no drive.
Yeah.
It's
But if you tell me,
s-
like, I have to quit for my kids, for my own health,
yeah.
such and such, then there's that
That's
step. And then
it. Same
it's,
weight
go
loss.
ahead.
It's the same with like
Same
anything.
with any
If
habit, any
yeah,
habit.
it's the problem when you say
And
again. I'm a huge weird again. Ritual is a weird thing because I was talking about this earlier on to my partner, and again I don't really smoke cigarettes that much, but I'm a huge smoker of cannabis. I smoke a lot of CBD flower, like CBD
absolutely.
herb. But because of its weird, shitty burning, I use like tobacco because it's easier.
Yeah.
It burns. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? And because I also smoke cigarettes, well, it's just easier to blend the two. And I've done that for
Yeah.
numerous amounts of years. I used to smoke essentially what's known as, well, they're called spliffs to the
Yeah. Yeah.
American audience.
Yep.
Um, but obviously, I used to smoke hefty amounts of just pure cannabis.
Mm.
But it makes you pretty lazy, you know. This show
It
would be
does.
completely this show would be completely different if I'd have smoked three pure cannabis spliffs
Yeah.
in this show. Well, I wouldn't be sat here now. I wouldn't be talking
Yeah.
nowhere near as much as I could be.
There'd be long gaps of silence.
Yeah, well, not unless allegedly all I was saying was bullshit, and I'm a pro of the game. But that's well, that's allegedly. But you know, I'm a huge.
Allegedly.
Again, it's like a it's all allegedly, but you know, it's all that it's that ritual thing. Is you sit there and you roll and. You know,
Yes.
you have to roll this perfect roach, and you get your Rizzler nice, and you put the
Yes.
tobacco in, and bang, you have to make it perfect.
That's
I
a
it's a ritual.
Yeah. And it's way more important to our mental health than most people think. It's very, very important to have rituals that you partake in. And
Oh
people
yeah,
hear that word and they think religious things. That's got nothing to do with it.
I think
It's
demons.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But like, it's one of the things with the stop smoking client I do is I have to break their ritual of smoking. Like, a good example of a ritual that many people partake in is we we wake up, we go to the bathroom, and we light a cigarette. And
That's my exact.
it's, well, no, we have differences, but there's the way,
No, that's
there's the
exactly my
steps you
morning
go through.
starts.
Uh, exactly. That's how your morning starts because that's your ritual. If you were not able to do that, there would be a disturbance in your day. So you can actually take this ritualization of processes and use it to your benefit, especially with hypnosis. Because in hypnosis, I can start doing things like adding anchors, and that's often referred to as like post hypnotic suggestions. And what that means is, say, for example, if you always wake up in a bad mood and but you drink coffee, I would take you to a relaxed, pleasant state in hypnosis, and I would then link that feeling with the smell of brewing coffee. So, because smell is our most powerful sense memory, you can
Yep.
smell things that take you back to childhood, to that exact moment. You remember what was going on, you remember how you felt. Well, what if you could do that willfully with a feeling of calm and well being? You can't with hypnotic anchors. So instead of waking up aggravated and irritated, you smell that thing that now has a subconscious anchor put in to well-being and happiness, and you go about your morning a little happier. That can be done with almost any object, word, sense, thought, whatever, and anything else associated with it. That's all
Well,
life is.
I mean, it is that. I mean, my problem is that I've trained my brain so many times. Like I used to be a huge fuck up with the amount of drugs I
Mhm.
used to take.
Same,
Like
same.
a hefty amount. Like I can't even put it into numbers. And for years, well, you could. There's no chart that could actually put it to scale. But it's like I use neurolinguistic programming to conquer some of that, and
Mhm.
to some of the modern day, I kind of use it again. But sometimes I have this weird mentality that I could again. I'm a drinker. I like to drink
Mhm.
at the minute, and it's not a great. It's not a great persona for some people. Some people are like, "Hey, why'd you drink?" And I'm like, "Well, because it's kind of fun."
Yeah.
And
And that's the thing.
no,
Are
go on.
you drinking because it's fun, or are you drinking to hide? And it's the people that drink to hide and to run, and that becomes an
Yeah,
issue. And everyone's hiding from something. Every one of us that self medicates does it for something. Like you said, social lubricant makes you easier for you to talk and to
yeah,
socialize. That's
yeah.
really the
Well,
main purpose.
it's not even
Um,
necessarily that. I mean, there is that social lubricant side, but I mean, there is an aspect of me that kind of has got a fucked up life at the minute that
huh?
a family life that I am kind of, I'm half drinking for a reason, but,
Well, you
but
you numb the
that,
pain and make it more easy to process
oh yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
moment. It's able to take a
absolutely.
break, and
But there's
that's pretty
also,
normal.
but there's also that difference between physically drinking to numb that pain and a consistent, you know, rather than being a. I'm not going to say an alcoholic, but maybe I could be in a minute because some days I do drink on a day to day basis, but
People
it doesn't.
have more
It's so
addictions
strange.
than they think.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
People will decry alcoholism when they get up every morning and drink 3 cups of coffee, and not realizing that they are ingesting a very powerful stimulant that, if they attempted to quit, would have negative physical effects.
oh yeah, I
Uh,
know all
at
about
least in the short term.
that.
Oh yeah, I quit coffee recently because it was making me shaky, and
Yeah, I mean, this
it's
is the other side. Sorry, is that I also drink a lot of coffee as well. This is why I don't see alcoholism being a problem because
we
I
have
drink a lot.
for
I
our
drink
entire
I drink everything. I don't know.
humanity. I forget who it was at one time. I saw refer to us as the psychedelic ape because we use drugs naturally in our day to day life to to alter our being,
State
and
state of
it's not
conscious.
exactly no.
Yeah.
Well, I say no other creature does that, but that's not true. There's plenty of other animals in nature
Oh,
that
there is.
have substances. There's a lemur in the fucking jungle somewhere that's got this millipede that it eats. That's a powerful hallucinogen, and it just sits there and eats that shit all day.
You ever heard of
But
mad honey?
yeah,
There's
yeah,
the
yeah.
honey that's made out in like Nepalese somewhere, like Nepal, and again, it's very hard to
Because
obtain. But there's
the
these
flower it was harvested from.
yeah, these bees go down and get the honey, and then they make this crazy psychedelic honey that people just
But
go
that's
mad for.
think about how long we've done that. Think about how long we've used altered states of consciousness, which hypnotism is. Hypnotism is the same thing. It's utilizing an altered state of consciousness. Only instead of drinking something or smoking something to
Yeah.
get to this altered state, you are guided there by another person. And you look back thousands of years into our history, and there's always been this use of psychedelics and this use
Oh
of
yeah,
various plants they've come up with us.
yeah.
Um,
Well, have you heard of
fungus especially.
Terence McKenna's theory?
Oh yeah,
Obviously,
oh yeah.
yeah. That
Terrence
again,
McKenna, Bob Stamets, or
yeah.
us, Paul Stamets.
Paul Stamets. His
Um,
mushroom. You ever seen his mushroom hat? That's
yeah, I got a little mushroom hat. I
wild.
love that
It's,
man.
got that
Um,
hat is crazy. It's so
that is
wild.
nuts, but that man is a genius. If
Oh yeah.
anyone listening's never listened to Paul Stamets speak before, it is amazing
Uh,
the things that he has to say.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of. It's one of the. Again, I say I'm not a huge drug advocate, but I do drink, I smoke cannabis, but psychedelics are the only other thing that I do because
There's
they are
yeah, the
most
research behind that.
apart from acid because acid's
Yeah,
man-made, but
yeah,
anything that's
but psilocybin
man-made,
is
yeah, I'm a huge
bizarre. It
fan of that.
like I remember it was a 2 hour lecture I saw with Paul Stamets talking about the regenerative benefits of psilocybin
Oh yeah,
and how it's actually reformed neural transmitters that have previously
yep.
decayed. And it's I never
Even
thought I would see
microdosing,
decay. Yeah,
even just
especially
yeah, mic
microdosing
yeah,
because there's people that object to taking uh intoxicating amounts of the mushroom that have no problem microdosing. And it's the health benefits are absolutely insane. And to hear Paul Stamets talk about it, the man swears that almost every problem that we have can be solved with a fucking mushroom.
yeah.
Like, and so far, he's not been proven wrong. And it's the strangest thing. But
Well,
all of these things that we've talked about all lead back to this same central concept that our mind is malleable, like for
oh yeah,
better or for worse.
it's like
And
Play-Doh.
people assume that, oh, I am this way or I do this thing, and it can't ever change because this is the way I am, and that's just not true.
So
Uh,
wrong.
anyone listening to this right now, if there's anything you take away from all of this, it's that
Ignore
anything that
social
you want,
constructs.
yeah, no social constructs for one, but is if there's anything you want to change, if you want to do better in an area, if you want to improve something in your life, there exists the tool to willfully bring about that change, and it's hypnotherapy. It's actively changing those associations in your head to change your behavior. And it's I say I'm it's not I oh god, what was that saying? Uh I'm not just a member, I'm also a client or something like that. From fucking hair club for men.
Oh,
Uh I
yeah,
say this as
heckle
someone
for
that
me.
shaves their head, but Um but yeah,
I
I
mean, I shave mine, but it's only
oh I
because
mine gets shaved for me. I just have to clean up the rest. Uh,
I mean, I've been shaving mine for years, but then before the pandemic, I decided I've gone through many hairstyles, and I thought I'd grow some dreads for a bit because I always wanted dreads, but then the pandemic hit, and I had some dreads, and no one could look after them, and wow, super hard work, and
oh yeah, it's
then
a lot of work.
cultural appropriation come into play, and I was like, we'll get rid of
Yeah.
these.
Well,
So
then
I
there's the simple fact that white people's hair just doesn't do that well. Like you have to do something to it to make that
yeah,
happen.
but I think when people say that, like cultural appropriation with dreadlocks,
I don't
like
really, and this might be
dreadlocks have been
controversial.
about probably since the dawn of man. So I don't
Cultural
know how.
appropriation is how culture grows.
Yes. Yeah, I
Like
think every
we,
single culture has had dreadlocks. Like
yeah, and
not even
it's a matter
bullshit.
of
Like
it's
I think everyone's
I
had
guess
them.
there's a difference. There's a difference between appropriation and merging. Because appropriation is just straight jacking somebody else's thing and claiming it's
Oh
your
yeah,
own.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But just by the way that society and
Well, that's
culture
happening
works,
now.
it
There's
always
this.
happens.
Well, I mean, I don't normally like to sabotage myself, but there's a weird trans racial movement happening now where people are going, "Hey, I identify
Yeah,
as
that's an
this
unusual one.
race," and that is
And
very peculiar. And I'm going to sabotage myself just saying all
oh
this
yeah,
because I
it's a
know it's going to hit
tricky
me. It's going to hit me down
it's
the line.
tricky, but
Fucking
here's the thing.
so
Like
bizarre.
I could take a very neutral placement on it because it's on one hand I don't agree with it. It seems dumb.
It's
Not
fucking
but on the other
crazy.
hand, like if we accept that someone else can be another gender and can live their life as another gender, I mean, why why do we draw the line at race? And how is that different? Because it's a more sensitive topic. And if absolutely, if there's anyone out there right now that can expound upon this for me, feel free to send me a message. All my contact stuff will be at the end. But
Oh,
as you said,
absolutely. Well,
social constructs. You want to talk about social constructs? Uh, it all is a social construct. Race, gender, all of it, all a social construct. And it's I don't know how to feel about it because on one hand I view it as an inherently bizarre thing, but unless I knew the people that I knew and the things that I know in terms of trans people, I would think that was inherently bizarre too until I got educated. So, like I said, if there's anyone that can fucking educate me about this, please
I
do
mean,
because I'm confused.
my mind partly thinks that as society we need to evolve into this singularity,
Yes,
and
we
to be able to do that you have to break everything down into what it is,
all the constructs.
and
Yes.
then eventually it's not going to happen straight away. It's going to happen over, I mean,
Many
uh,
generations. But the we
probably,
cannot progress as a race and as a planet
yeah,
divided along these
but
lines that we are.
I think at the minute we're in this sort of weird moment where, like I said, we're all coming together and we've all got these constructs and we're all trying to bind and become what we are. But I think what's going on at the minute is, I think with this gender fluidity, it's going to happen because there's, for me, I mean,
Well,
there was a moment in my life where I never believed I'd have children, and then
yeah,
I have two now.
yeah,
And for me, it was a weird thing. And if there was a moment way back when, uh, and I could have frozen my sperm when I knew before I'd done a hefty amount of drugs, and well, I didn't know if I'd have counted that, which I did.
mm,
But if I'd have known prior to that I could have frozen my sperm and then whatever,
yeah,
uh, I think that we're going to go to a weird moment where IVF needs to be much more easier than
yes.
the normal form of reproduction. I think that's kind of where we're going to head within,
Well, and one of the points I like to
a
bring up
100 years
is
maybe.
what what defines masculinity? Because 100 years ago, it was something different. 100 years before that, it was something
Oh yeah.
different. There was a point that as a man, if you didn't wear the tightest of tights with ruffly things all over you and
Oh yeah, there's
makeup and perfume,
Jacobean ruffs and shit. What the fuck?
yeah, you
The
were
big
you were
big
emasculine.
wigs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
big wigs, like
the big
fantastic dress. That was the
they were
height of
hot
masculinity
they were
at that
hiding
time.
syphilis as well, which was crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah,
those,
that's but I
those
encourage
are a bunch of
anyone,
perverts.
like anyone that ever feels threatened by things like that, I always encourage to take a step back and look historically, what even is masculinity? What defines a man?
To me, it's
And
a hero, isn't it? You
there
know.
is a sense of heroism to what defines masculinity, and there's a sense of security to what defines femininity. And it's we there's this weird impasse we're coming at developmental stages that we're realizing that these things, these definitions of masculinity and femininity, are
Well,
not limited to gender necessarily. That it
to,
is an expression of personality.
but
It's
to me, it always goes back to the Greeks in a way, because when
yeah.
you think of those things, you think of feminism. You can think of like Aphrodite and these
Mhm.
huge, powerful Greek figures, and
Yes.
think about masculinity. But it always kind of goes back to these weird sort of ancient civilizations and
Hmm.
cultures.
And that's
Because I
kind of
can't
part of the
really,
problem is we're
I,
looking back
yeah,
and we need to
I
look
can't.
forward.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't any in the modern
Oh
day
yeah.
time. There's tons. Wow. There's
Oh
many more nowadays than what there was then because,
yes.
well, there's just no history, but
Because we're
what
realizing
is?
this is such a strange age to live in because there's all of these Pandora's boxes we've opened
Oh,
that
yeah.
have never even been conceived of before. We we are 100% living in the most advanced, interesting time in the human history at all. Period. This is a transitional stage that it can go one of two ways. I think we're either going to develop into something great from
Well,
this, or we're going to wreck our shop.
how would this affect hypnotherapy? Because I'm a huge fan of advanced technology and I look into a lot of shit. And uh,
Well,
Neuralink.
with advanced technology,
Uh,
you're able to read what's happening now. I've
but what
seen
about
somebody get hypnotized on screen.
Neuralink? Because essentially, if you heard about
Oh,
Neuralink,
Musky Boy's little thing.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
obviously that's a legitimate real thing, and probably by
yeah,
the time it comes to the seventh advanced model or the Series 10 or whatever you want to
yeah.
call it, it's going to essentially eradicate any. It's going to that will happen. It's almost unavoidable to think that it won't do that.
No, it's that's a natural progression of this to where we're heading. And I think that hypnosis and hypnotherapy, as the future progresses, is actually going to become more of an important thing.
Do
And
you think?
it's
Do you think that you could ever really? I mean, that's a weird thing because I didn't even think about that until now. But you could almost weirdly combine the two to
yes,
almost
absolutely.
extract memories and extract like so much information from people that would be like. I mean, again, your job is what you do is like you say memory regression, and you can go way down the line. But
Mhm.
if you equip that to like something
Mhm.
that was on essentially hardwired into your you know
Oh yeah, you can
brain
absolutely utilize that
brain and
same
your
process.
subconscious, yeah,
Absolutely.
that would be could be crazy. What would do you ever think of advancing your field and equipping that?
Well, I think that
That'd be
as
a
the years
weird
go
one.
by, my field's going to become quite a bit more technology oriented. because right now there exists monitoring equipment even to show somebody going into hypnosis, so we know the brain and heart patterns that exist in this state. And if Neuralink does everything that it says it does, it would be a simple matter of just changing your heart and brain waves into that synchronicity and
Yeah.
naturally entering into that programming state. But I actually need to wrap this up because I got a couple things I gotta do.
No,
I didn't realize
that's
we've been
okay.
we've been talking for a while. I didn't even realize that.
No, well, that's the thing is, I love these long form conversations, and
Oh,
I
it's been
feel
great.
I somehow feel this could have broken the record. There's this is a very 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 interesting episode. Where can people follow you, my friend? Because this
Well,
you've had me
as I said,
gripped this whole entire time.
my name's J. Robert Parker. I own Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research LLC. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, you can go to my website at www.twinravens.org, or shoot me an email directly at twinravenshypno@protonmail.com. Um, and absolutely, anything I've talked about today, anything I've mentioned, feel free to shoot me a message if you were interested in becoming a client. I would be happy to speak to you about that. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions at all. Have a talk with anyone about
Well,
this.
most of my people are stateside.
Well, it
Most of
doesn't
my
actually
audience are
matter.
stateside.
I uh I have
Okay.
clients in Iran. I have clients in Russia. I
Oh
work
shit.
remote. So
Oh, okay. That's
like
even cooler.
95% of my clients are fully remote. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you want to become one of my clients, that is absolutely an option.
That's super. That's even cooler, man. Listen, this is again. I'm sad to round this up early, but I'm gonna have to get you back on. It's
Oh,
the
absolutely. I'd be
inevitable.
happy to be on anytime.
It's the inevitable because this has been one of the funnest conversations I've had, and uh, I've got this so many notes I didn't even get to. God damn it! It just
Well,
free
we'll
flowed.
we'll have to do a follow up soon. I've got no
Yeah,
problem with that.
this is what happens sometimes. Is I'll do these huge amounts of notes and the conversation just free flows, and
Yeah.
I always try and
Well,
bring
as I
it
said,
round. And
I got no
but
problem
listen,
coming back on.
absolutely. Well, listen, this has been the Posthuman Podcast, and we've been here with J. Robert Parker. Take it easy, people. Thank you very much.